is, and this, I think many of you, I've seen many of you before, a lot of you have been in classes with me before, and you've heard me say this idea that one of the main important concepts for Dr. Wang was understanding normal physiology, how the body works in a normal sense. In other words, beginning with what the channels are and how they function in the body. And if you have this understanding of normal physiology in classical text, then you can innovate. You don't just have categories of pathology, you have normal physiology. And then even the point pairs, which I want to talk about as we see patients, I want to talk about favorite point pairings. Those become flexible. So I think of everything we're going to talk about for this next hour this morning is like the training wheels when you learn to ride a bicycle. Little children have the extra wheels on the side. And you use all of this thinking that Dr. Wang is explaining, and slowly over time you take the wheels off and it becomes even more flexible in your mind. That's what I mean about imitate, assimilate, innovate. What is that? Oh, okay. Don't let it fall asleep. All right. Yeah, so there's this idea of, as you practice this over time, it becomes flexible. And one other thing you'll see when we talk about diagnosis, I'll say more about diagnosis in the next little while. In Dr. Wang's thinking, you think about channels first, then points. So it's really more about which channel is going on, then we talk about points. So he doesn't even think about points until later. And so then, of course, this idea about what channels are. I'm going to go through this because we have a patient in an hour. I'm going to go through some things a little more quickly because there's some slides in a moment I want to make sure we talk about. But this quote from the Ling Shu is one of Dr. Wang's absolute favorites. It says, "The channels determine life and death," meaning when you are alive, there are acupuncture channels. When you're dead, they're no longer there. They're involved in all disease, or the 100 disease is what it says in Chinese. They regulate excess and deficiency. They provide when there's not enough, and they take away when there's too much. And they must not be blocked, or they have to be tong. And this concept tong means moving through. Everything has to be moving through the body. And so, interesting, of course, many of you are aware in the last maybe 6 months, there's this famous research from the United States in New York. They discovered a new organ called the interstitium. Have you heard about this? And it's unbelievable how similar it is to what the Neijing seems to be saying as to what the acupuncture channels are. It's a fluid system that's in the connective tissue where there's same type of cells here as out here, so there's a histological similarity to the cells, and it's a fluid system that is only visible when the person is alive. And that's why they couldn't see it before, because they didn't have imaging technology to see the living tissue in the way they do now. And they discovered, whoa, there's this whole fluid system in the body. They first found it in the gallbladder, but then they found it within the skin as well. So it's interesting development. I think that is as close as I have seen to what Dr. Wang's conception of the acupuncture channels are. And so his conception of the channels is that they're not fascia. They are the ability of the fluids inside the fascia to be moving through. So that's a little bit different than saying it's not that the fascia are the channels. Maybe the fascia is the sanjiao. It's the borders of the channels. And the fluids inside, that's what the channels are. So that's how they're involved in all disease. And Dr. Wang had this summary of these quotes he kept behind him when he was speaking. He had those scrolls. These were 2 phrases that he developed. And he had this famous calligrapher, Taoist calligrapher, the Baiyuan, the White Cloud Temple. He painted these scrolls that he kept behind him. And then when there were 5 of us who were Dr. Wang's apprentices, his students, and he gave us each a copy of these scrolls, so I have them in Seattle also. And the scrolls had 2 phrases. He said these 2 scrolls summarize his understanding of channels and organs, his life work in 2 little short sentences. And he said, so I'll go through the 2 separately, but the one scroll on the left said the 5 Zang organs foster essence and govern destiny. We'll talk about that in a moment. And the channels permeate and govern life. And this term permeate, you could also use the English word irrigate, like a water system, to irrigate plants. So then you can see what these two phrases are doing, they're comparing the channels and the organs and their different role in the body. So if we take it apart, this is the first phrase. This is the first phrase again. The 5 Zhang organs preserve essence and rule destiny. This term Ming, which we translate as destined. Did you have a question?
No, I asked one word.
Oh yeah, please, yeah. Or ask, yeah, feel free to interrupt. Yeah, we're going to go, actually the next hour, probably of the whole weekend, will be filled with some more complex concepts. So please interrupt because it's important that we understand. I want you to interrupt also if you have questions. Maybe you understand, but you have questions. That's also important. So anyway, this first one, this character Ming, can have it has different meanings, like Shen, depending on context. Ming, many people translate that as destiny. Dr. Wang in this phrase was saying, when he says the 5 Zhang organs, or the yin organs, they hold the essences of the body. They hold those things that come to us from our ancestors. The things that are the yin aspect of our body, that is your potential in life. So in other words, each of us from our parents and from our development in the uterus comes out with certain Zhang organs, which is what we can do in life. This is what we have a potential to do. So you could, yes?
Is that Ming the same character as we have in Ming Man?
Ming Man, yes.
Yeah.
The Ming Man point, the life gate, Ming Man.
So that's the meaning of life.
Yes. Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. So the Ming Man, what is it? Yeah. Do for.
Yeah. Do my feel.
Is the same Ming. So yeah. So it's you know, many concepts in Chinese, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, have many different meanings, really. But again, in this phrase, Dr. Wang is saying the yin organs have the essences. This is your potential. And their ability, though, to realize that potential is determined by the health of the channel system, because they are irrigating and watering everywhere and connecting the organs to each other. So the ability of the blood created by the liver to invigorate the tissues of the body, and also to stimulate the digestive system, as the liver does as it dredges and drains, that is determined by the channel health. And so, yes?
Könntest du das jetzt kurz zusammenfassend übersetzen?